Let's go. I know it's the off season and I know we're all sad. There's no football going on right now, but this is where you really make your money. This is where you buy cards at the cheapest before the big NFL draft hype cycle that's coming up. And Andy has a bunch of quarterback information today that he is going to share with you. He's been diving deep into the rookie ticket autos. And then at the end of the episode, I went to an LCS and I hit a tough realization, Andy, about something I want to call the game-worn uniform theory. Okay, I'm going to save that for the end of the episode. But Andy, this is where it's fun because right now it could be a blank slate for a lot of people that are just now getting into the hobby. This is a good time for you, right? Prices are relatively low compared to the actual season hype and whatnot. And for experienced people that have been in the game for a while and kind of know that this is an unbelievable time to buy. And Andy, you have really been grinding the numbers, the analytics behind the quarterbacks and their different variations and sets.
Absolutely, Carter. This is so much fun right now. Tons of speculation, tons of rumors swirling. Free agency is getting ready to kick off. So a lot of stuff going on. And basically, I'm already doing 2022 early best ball drafts. I'm getting pumped up to kick off some new dynasty football leagues this year. And I've been digging into the top 10 dynasty ranked quarterbacks. It's very interesting that Josh Allen has leapfrogged Patrick Mahomes to the number one dynasty quarterback in consensus, general consensus from what I've found. However, when you look at the difference between the number of inserts and parallels between Josh Allen's 2018 Prism and Patrick Mahomes, and the optic and Donruss, and then the value differences, it's pretty incredible, Carter. So what I did was I went to tradingcarddatabase.com and actually went back all the way to 2012 for Russell Wilson and looked at his Prism. And there were 18 different Prism cards available for him. 9 of those were parallels, so 9 parallels, 9 inserts. And currently that raw card for Russell Wilson is $90 raw, about $600 PSA 10. Fast forward to 2016 for Dak Prescott. Now you have 43 different Prism cards. 17 of those are parallels. So almost like a 100% increase from 2012. However, Dak Prescott's raw Prism, which comes standard silver, $125 raw, $450 PSA 10. Now we go to 2017, the modern day legend Patrick Mahomes. All right. 60 different Prism cards, so a slight increase there, not too crazy. 19 different parallels, so only 2 new parallels. However, his raw base Prism, which comes standard silver, is $1,000 raw and $7,200 in a PSA 10, Carter.
Right. And Josh Allen is the one I want to know. I want to see what the latest were, because I remember when his PSA 10s leading into the season last year were up to $900. I'm interested to see, Andy, what the Josh Allen numbers are now.
Okay, so 2018 Josh Allen Prism, they added 4 new inserts. They also added 3 new parallels over 2017 to a total of 22 parallels. His base raw Prism right now is going for around $150 on average. The PSA 10, $750 on average. So they are down, Carter. Yeah. They are down. And now if you really wanted to compare more of an apples to apples, you either have to look at the optic hollow or you have to look at the Prism silver, which is how Patrick Mahomes' base Prism comes out as silver. Those raw are about $1,200, Carter, for Josh Allen. They're very difficult to find. Right. I couldn't find any in a PSA 10, but what I could find was a field level silver from the select set. That in a PSA 10 is about $1,800. So still very much lower than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
PSA 10 optic hollow for Josh Allen, $1,500. But this is what's so fascinating. So you go to 2019 Kyler Murray, you look at the number differences. They actually decreased the number of inserts in 2019 Prism from 2018. They added 3 new parallels. Then you go to 2020, Carter. This is where things start to get crazy.
Let's go. Joey B, let's go.
They added 78 new inserts in 2020 over 2019. They went to a total of 100. And actually, all of these aren't inserts. I take that back because all of these aren't inserts. So they went from 25 parallels of Kyler Murray to 66 parallels for Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. So that's an increase of 41 parallels. So you subtract that from 78, you're left with about 37 new inserts in 2020 Prism over 2019.
Goodness.
All in all, from the first year that Prism was invented, if you will, in 2012, where they had 18 different cards, now they're up to 138 different cards. So you have 120 new cards, and the parallels went from 9 to 66. So,
God bless.
59 new parallels, or 57 new parallels compared to 2012 product. However, you look at Joe Burrow's raw prisms, they're still selling for around $100 right now. And we know that those in themselves have a much higher print run than Russell Wilson's raw prism selling for $90. And Joe Burrow's PSA 10 base prism is $380 compared to a $600 Russell Wilson base prism PSA 10. Fascinating.
Yeah. So a few things. Obviously, that prism print run is very interesting. I think out of all the years that you just said, I think 2019 prism is still the most interesting thing. And you've made a lot of good points about that year being a good optic year, not only for Kyler Murray, but for guys like DK Metcalf and one of our favorite players on this channel, AJ Brown. What's really fascinating to me, Andy, my first major takeaway is I think people as collectors need to understand this. Do you view Josh Allen as the next great one? Okay. And I do think Josh Allen had the best 2-game playoff run of any playoff quarterback I've ever seen. He played perfect football in both his games. Like you can't play the quarterback position any better than he did, and he did it at the highest possible stage. Now, am I very interested to see what he's going to look like without Brian Daboll? Absolutely. I'm a big Brian Daboll believer, and Sean McDermott has kind of turned me off these past couple years versus the Chiefs as a defensive head coach and a coach who is way too conservative. But do I still believe in Josh Allen? Yes. In fact, I've been trying to buy some Josh Allen myself. Now, Andy, this is what I would say. I don't know if just going to buy Prism Josh Allen is a smart move. However, I think out of all the players you just mentioned, the one that really sticks out to me is Russell Wilson. And the reason why, if you are just focusing on just Prism, is not only Russell Wilson a little undervalued. At the same time, that was also first year Prism. And for those that don't know, that was first year that Prism ever had a card. So I found that to be very interesting. PSA 10 600. I remember when those cards were consistently trading as well around that $900 range consistently. So I do think Russell Wilson is someone that's very tempting. And then, of course, the last little bit of the data is not really a surprise, Andy, to people that have been around the hobby for a while. But it is true. 2020 print runs are just ridiculous. You got the zebra prism, and you got the green prism, and the shiny prism, and the camouflage prism, and the prism. So it was very interesting that you crunched all those numbers. I thought there was a lot. What was some of your major takeaways?
Yeah, so one more guy I'm going to throw at you, and then I'll share with you one more major takeaway, probably the biggest major takeaway, because I also compared the numbers and the rookie ticket auto from 2012 till now. But Kyler Murray, I didn't mention what his prisms are trading at. These are like clearance right now, Carter. The raw prisms for Kyler Murray, $40. The PSA 10s, $150 to $170 right now. No joke. So he's the most criminally underpriced one out of all of them. Now, they did just extend Cliff Kingsbury's contract as their head coach. And so I don't know what kind of taste that leaves in the mouth of Arizona fans and collectors and investors out there for Kyler Murray, plus all the drama he's got going on with his social media feed and the Cardinals and his contract and all that. So there's a lot of Kyler Murray in the market right now.
Very interesting. So once again, that 2019 year was so fascinating, Andy. And, the one name that we didn't mention at all is Lamar Jackson. I'm looking at some Lamar Jackson stuff myself. Same year as Josh Allen. And one of those guys has the MVP. And by looking at their prices, you wouldn't guess that it would be Lamar Jackson compared to Josh Allen. But yes, Lamar does have an MVP. He does still have one of the best coaches in the NFL. And look, I'm still a Lamar guy. Remember, this is a hype generated business. You may not believe that Lamar Jackson is going to ever get back to what he did last year. But when he played this year, he was fine. But what was most notable was he still made the freaking Pro Bowl, even though Josh Allen and Joe Burrow were better than him. Even Derek Carr was better than Lamar Jackson, but he still got voted in. So remember, Lamar is a thrilling player. He's got a ton of fans that buy his jerseys, buy his stuff. He's got that superstar personality. That's someone else. You could take all the data you got from Andy, do your own research on Lamar Jackson as well, and you could find some good rookie autos, in the $200 range, good rookie patch autos. So don't forget about all the Lamar Jackson, and that's what we always tell you to do, Andy, is to always look one way when everyone else is looking the other. And I do think Josh Allen prices are reflecting that right now.
Yeah, and not to mention that 2019 MVP season, if you look at Pro Football Reference and look at their approximate values, and it'll compare that 2019 season he had to all the great MVP seasons of quarterbacks going back to the beginning of time. That's up there, one of the top 3 all-time best years of a quarterback ever, Carter, in terms of production. So it's really interesting to think if he could just get back to 75, 80% of that season, I think we're looking at a breakout year for Lamar Jackson. Obviously got a ton of time left. One major takeaway I had. So I also went back and did this for National Treasures, which is a premium, arguably cream of the crop set for collectors and investors in football cards. Also the rookie ticket auto, which has become my new favorite set to target investing. So you look at Russell Wilson's rookie ticket auto, there was only 3 parallels from 2012. You go all the way back to 98, 2000, Brady, there was only 2 parallels. 3 for Russell Wilson, 2012. Fast forward to 2017, Patrick Mahomes, he had 17 different parallels. They also introduced the optic, which contained 8 different parallels. So now you're at a total 25, but just looking at that base set, you went from 3 to 17. But then from 2017 to 2020, where we saw such a huge leap in Prism and Optic and Donruss, but not nearly as much as Prism. The rookie ticket auto only jumped from 17 different parallels to 21 different parallels for Joe Burrow.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting. Now they did jump. Now this is where they did increase a little bit. They did add 21 new parallels for his optic rookie ticket auto. And so this goes back to something that I've talked about before, and I've seen it time and time again. The base rookie ticket auto and those variations from the base contender set will sell for more in auctions and buy nows if the player is super hyped up than those optic ones. And I think that's because the base set has got more clout and it's a little bit more scarce. There's not as many parallels. It hasn't grown as much, expanded as much as the optic set has in such a short amount of time too.
Yeah, honestly, peer pressure from you has gotten me into rookie ticket autos. I'm obsessed. I just am. And I was at an LCS this past weekend, and I finally got to see a Drew Brees rookie ticket auto right in front of me. Also got to hold a really rare Joe Burrow rookie ticket auto to 23. And it's very interesting. It's my favorite auto out there now. Now, once again, I'm not beholden to it. I still like patches, which we'll get to in just a second. But it's just a beautiful card. It's an iconic card, and I want to include this nugget, Andy, that you always remind me of. This goes way back to Peyton Manning's rookie season, right? The iconic Peyton Manning rookie ticket auto. So you're talking about, as far as like diehard collectors that are into sports cards in general, there's also basketball rookie ticket autos. It's a big deal. It's a very important thing, right? And the way I knew this is, I was at this LCS, Chuck Sports Card in Albany, Louisiana. And, he had all these rare Drew Brees autos, but the one that was in his trophy case above all the others was the Drew Brees rookie ticket auto from his Chargers year, right? I'm a big Drew Brees guy. Obviously, I got his shirt on right now. And it has serious clout. I didn't believe it at first. I was like, there's some other cards that I like prettier as far as the autos are concerned, but it still does hold serious weight. Now, we're not saying go overpay for some rookie ticket auto. No, obviously do your price research and, listen to us, the experts. I'm kidding. But do your research, look at the price, look at the condition and all of that. But it's just the card when it comes to autos.
Yeah, it's the card when it comes to autos. I talk about Randy Moss as well from 1998, and the card is extremely iconic. You can reference the Tom Brady rookie ticket auto
Yeah.
championship ticket sold for $2.3 million. But those cracked ice rookie ticket autos are arguably selling for just as much as National Treasures card, which they increased the number of inserts in that set dramatically. From 2017 to 2018, they added 41 new inserts into National Treasures. So something to be aware of when you're comping. I've had guys reach out to me in the messages and say, "Hey, I think Jonathan Taylor's undervalued right now compared to Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. If you look at the prices of his Optic Hollows and Prism Silvers compared to Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, they're going for much less. But that's because, there's 66 different parallels of Jonathan Taylor's Prism cards that all have their own print runs, and there's so many more inserts, and there's so many more just options in general to choose from. Plus, with the higher print runs, that it really dilutes it kind of diversifies people's attention. Their attention gets a little bit drawn out and scattered. It's you have way more options. So when you look at Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey, those are kind of like that's the iconic card, that's the king card that you want to have, that base Prism Silver, whereas it's not the case when it comes to Jonathan Taylor.
It's not. And I'm just going to say this. I would stay away from Jonathan Taylor cards. I just would. Look, the AFC next year is going to be so good, and their quarterback is Carson Wentz. So at some point, if you are buying his cards, you want him to win at some point. And I just don't see a clear path to winning, even though in a weak division with Carson Wentz as your quarterback. Now, he still could go off and be the next Adrian Peterson or the next LaDainian Tomlinson. And if you do think he is on that level of all-time running back, go right on ahead. But what I would say is, guess what? LaDainian Tomlinson and Adrian Peterson cards aren't unbelievably priced as it is now, Andy. It's crazy how, and we're gonna dive into running back data next week. So we're gonna do a two-part thing, and we'll go deeper into what running backs are actually worth and what you should do about certain running backs. And we're gonna do all this data that Andy did with some other running backs next week. We'll look at Alvin Kamara. We'll look at all these guys. Man, I see some of these Jonathan Taylor prices and I kind of wince. But if you do believe he is that good, and he did have that type of season this past year, well, he's going to need to put 5 or 6 more of these types of seasons, or he's going to have to win a Super Bowl or something like that for me to justify going out and buying one of his cards. So once again, we always say this: if you are a super Jonathan Taylor collector, go right on ahead. If it makes you happy, do it. And man, I would just be very, very, very careful.
I would too. Be very careful and make sure you're comping comparable print run cards from, his rookie year to Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, or whoever the case may be. If you're looking, whoever you're looking to buy. And, we talk about 2021 guys as well, Carter, because there's a lot of 2021 guys that are expected to have big sophomore years, and we want to invest in them early, but there's only a small handful of their sets out, and we are still waiting on a Prism being released at the end of April, May. It's still right around that time frame. Select right after that. So you have contenders that are just now coming out for their cards, and there's just not a whole lot. Like, just not a whole lot of comp. They did increase when I look at the base Donruss from 2020. Joe Burrow, they had 60 different cards. For Trevor Lawrence, they've got 74. They also have 25 parallels for Trevor Lawrence's base Donruss set compared to Joe Burrow's 14. So they did add inserts. They did add parallels to 2021. I don't think that they necessarily increased the print run, but I think they increased it by way of new parallels and new inserts. And we definitely see the new inserts. And pretty much every set, you look at the hobby box breakdown, there's, new in 2021 inserts and blah, 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 so they have several new inserts. I think a lot of what they've done, Carter, is they looked at what Topps was doing when they came into the market in 2012, because in 2012, Topps Chrome at the time had 54 different Topps Chrome variations for Russell Wilson, 17 different parallels. This is 4 times as many different prisms and twice as many parallels as they had prisms. But then once Panini acquired the licenses, the exclusive contracts with the NFL and NFLPA, they all of a sudden like, well, Topps was doing this. We've got to kind of make up for what they're doing. So I think they kind of use that as fuel to increase the number. Like, you look at 2015 and Jameis Winston, he had 80 different prism cards and 28 different parallels. This is a lot more than what Dak Prescott had in 2016. But, Jameis was, you do see the more draft pedigree that they have, the more cards that they kind of printed for them. It's just something to take into consideration. All these numbers, just kind of gives you a look behind the curtains, kind of helps you understand their thought process, and kind of helps you understand how to focus in your strategy and look for scarcity and look for value in the market with so many different options to choose from.
Patreon.com/football cards. There's more to this. There's more quarterback stuff that we discuss in the Discord and all that stuff. I haven't been as active in the Discord lately because of Mardi Gras celebrations. It was a big weekend for my family, so I apologize for people in the Discord that I haven't been commenting as much. But I still try my best to keep up and read everything. And what's very interesting about all that, what you just said, there's an interesting quarterback like a Tyler Huntley, and all he basically has are rookie ticket autos, right? So it's a very interesting thing when it comes to print runs. So let's just say this is your first time listening to the show. The reason why everything Andy just said is very important is because Dak Prescott was a quarterback selected later in the NFL draft, where obviously Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston, they printed more because of the draft capital that Andy was mentioning there. So that's something else that you have to keep in mind. Guys like Tyler Huntley, which is a very extreme example, but guys like Dak Prescott, they're just not going to have as many cards because of what Andy just said. So that's why it's very important to be a part of the Patreon community. Once again, it's well worth it, and you get information like this. So all of what you said is very important. My major takeaway from that is Dak Prescott is someone that you should look into, right? Biggest star on the biggest team in the NFL. And if they do win, there's still a lot of room for growth. Let's just say the Cowboys do make it to the Super Bowl again. The hype cycle for that, Andy, is going to be the biggest hype cycle in the history of sports cards for any one team, right? It's going to be the Cowboys back at the Super Bowl. It's going to be, primed up. This is Jerry's last ride. They finally made it. They may never get there. They definitely won't with McCarthy. But if they do, there's so much room for Dak Prescott cards to grow. We saw what Joe Burrow did for the Bengals. Imagine what Dak could do for the Cowboys. So I think that is someone else you should really look into right now. Now that things are died down a little bit. Now it's still going to be expensive, but I still believe in Dak. I still think he's a really good quarterback, and you just heard it there from Andy. The print runs aren't unbelievably ridiculous for that 2016 year.
Yeah, unbelievably ridiculous. And I mean, it's crazy that he's one of those guys where you can invest in the base silver prism and it's a safe investment. This is a wonderful card to invest in my opinion. I just flipped one of his optics, actually made a pretty nice profit on it that I'm sharing in a video that's coming out later this week on YouTube, in fact. So, but you look at Dak Prescott's number, you talked about the market size. We talked about the fact that he's been a 4,000 plus yard passer. This past year, he's number 7 in passing yards, number 4 in passing touchdowns, number 5 in accuracy rating. We talk about the EPA rating, which is an advanced PFF metric about how much the actual player contributed to the overall success of the team. He ranked number 11 in the league in EPA. Estimated points, expected points added. I mean, look at his red zone completion percentage last year was number 2 in the league at 63.7%. It's play action completion percentage, number 3 at 70%. It's just so his numbers are very good. They just, a lot of people have a bad taste in the mouth how they finished in the playoffs, and it's just taken a little time for him to catch back up, for his expectations to catch back up to the hobby. And that's absolutely fine because I think it's a great time right now as short term to invest in him.
Expected points added. I didn't think we'd get into some EPA discussion. So it's funny when you look at EPA, like what Patrick Mahomes has done with EPA is just mind-boggling. But still, it's I'm glad you brought that up. We're getting really down into the nitty-gritty. And it's funny, EPA is actually a stat that heavily influences the Vegas line. So it goes to show you that stat it's kind of becoming the stat. Now, it's not quite mainstream, and people that buy sports cards, 90% of them probably have never heard of EPA, but it is interesting. It might be something that you can do as far as your sports cards are concerned. Now, since we are on the topic of quarterbacks, what's very interesting, Andy, is, there's still guys that are retired out there that have some interesting vintage markets, guys like John Elway, Dan Marino. Of course, on this channel, we do focus mostly on modern, but as far as buying vintage guys, there's always going to be opportunity to do that because vintage quarterbacks are never really going to be the hot topic because they're not currently playing, but there's always some good opportunity to look for some really cool vintage inserts. And ironically, Andy, you and I have talked about this as well. There are very interesting different inserts and card designs from the Eli Manning, Big Ben, and Phillip Rivers 2004 famous draft class. So you have this legendary draft class that everyone talks about, one of the greatest NFL drafts of all time, right? With those 3 quarterbacks going on in the top 15. So you had, once again, something we were just talking about, all the different cards printed on those guys, right? They have some very interesting inserts that just look really cool, and you can get some for less than $100 if you look really close. I saw some cool Phillip Rivers autos that were about $100, $150. I was like, I really like Phillip Rivers. I do think at some point he'll go into the Hall of Fame. And he's just an interesting guy.
Yeah, some of his little like NFL vines that you see on YouTube are hilarious. Like some of the stuff that Phillip Rivers has said before. Eli Manning's still on TV. That's the only way I can watch Monday Night Football now. The Peyton and Eli show, So I love it. Larry Fitzgerald also came from that draft class.
Right.
I mean, what's amazing, like you can get Eli Manning's Beckett graded. It's not actually a Beckett grade, but they graded the autograph. It's his
Right.
tops, his base tops, which is an iconic card. It's got giants and big silver letters on the top. Autograph on the card, about $200. Very affordable, nice card, like something you'd be really happy to put up on your wall. I think those are more like blue chip type stocks. Those are more like investing in like Google and Amazon, where they just kind of never lose value, maybe slowly appreciate. He does manage to stay relevant. And you never know. I mean, those are kind of subject to the ebbs and flow of the hobby overall.
Right.
You know, more vintage collectors get in, that kind of thing, and we could see the scarcity of those go up and the value of those go up. And I think those kind of slowly appreciate.
I fully agree with you on that, and we'll go deep into vintage one day. I just wanted to bring that up. How cool some of those cards look! Oh my god, I could just stare at them all day, right? But yeah, that was a bunch of interesting quarterback data right there, Andy, and that's why you should go check out the Fantasy Football Card Quest YouTube channel. All the videos that you see on here are just absolutely phenomenal and well researched, and it's fun for me. Right, Andy, on my LSU YouTube channel, how many people are very interested in the sports cards? And you jumped on our channel before the Super Bowl, and everyone's trying to buy Joe Burrow. And I'm happy that I got a lot of messages from people saying, hey, you told me to wait to go for some Joe Burrow cards, and they are cheaper now. And I appreciate Andy jumping on and sharing that information as well. So, it is a fun time to get in right now, but do your research if you just happen to be thinking about joining this wonderful thing such as football cards. Now, Andy, next topic here. Don't forget, next week we'll take a look at that running back data and dive a little deeper as well. What's something else that's kind of jumped out at you as far as the season's over and we're looking forward to the NFL draft?
Yeah, very much so. Looking forward to the NFL draft. I think even more so than that, right now, I'm really trying to focus in and prioritize my investment dollars. I've taken a step back. Now the season's over. I'm not setting fancy lineups. I am still doing best ball drafts on Underdog, but I'm limiting those to just one or twice a week for fun to get an idea of where players' ADP is at. But free agency, Carter, I think we need to prioritize our investment dollars right now for the guys that we know are on the move, like i.e. Allen Robinson. It's just like jumping right off the bat. I mean, it's just an example, but you could talk about Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Mitchell Trubisky, if you want to talk about quarterbacks. And then we talk about some wide receivers like Allen Robinson and Chris Godwin. Odell Beckham Jr. Like, where are they going to go? What's going to happen to them? And I think we should be prioritizing our investment dollars on the guys that have a very high likelihood of landing on a new team. I think we're going to see hype increases. We're already seeing, some hype increase, some slow kind of trickle up on especially the top 10 guys from each position category. Watching their auctions, their buy it nows, a lot of activity, a lot of sales on a daily basis for those guys. They're very liquid and things are starting to appreciate. The market is very fluid, Carter. So if news is released that Jameis Winston, for example, signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's going to lead to a huge increase in his rookie cards. Right now, they're very underpriced compared to what they would be if he signed with a team like that.
The NFL is a copycat league. You hear that all the time, right? And we brought this up in the last episode, but it needs to be brought up again. I was listening to Mike Sando, who knows infinitely more about the NFL than I do, on a podcast with Ron Russillo yesterday. And, they were talking about free agency. And we made this point last week, but when someone like Mike Sando says it, just adds on to it. The last two Super Bowls were won by first-year free agent quarterbacks, right? This is going to make teams, especially in a weak draft class, more interested a weak QB draft class, more interested in trying to do this, right? We're just going to give up all our first round picks and go after Russell Wilson and try and aim for this. So keep that in mind if you are an investor collector, but also do the same thing for wide receivers. And I know we made this point in this exact portion of the episode last week, but it needs to be brought up again. Odell Beckham Jr. is the most influential wide receiver in the league, right? when you factor in Instagram following, when you factor in the A-list celebrities that adore this guy like King James and Champagne Poppy Drake, that's who that is. They adore him. Everyone in the league adores this guy, right? Now, a lot of people may not adore him because he can't be dramatic, but they saw what happened. They saw what happened. Odell got out of Cleveland, got away from Baker Mayfield, jumped on a contender, and immediately he probably, if he would have stayed healthy, probably would have won Super Bowl MVP. He was playing the best. And, Cooper Kupp's better than him, but Odell was the best player in the game up to that point. So other wide receivers are going to say, look, I could do the same thing. So Calvin Ridley will see that and say, you know what? I could do the same thing. I could do that on some other team, right? Once again, he wasn't phenomenal, but Julio Jones jumped from Atlanta to a first place contender, and it wasn't Julio, but I mean, he jumped into a better situation. So more wide receivers are going to look to do this. DeAndre Hopkins did this exact same thing, and even though he wasn't as good this year, he was phenomenal. Stephon Diggs was phenomenal right out the gates in his first year. So, that was such a great point by you, Andy, and I think we're going to see more wide receivers do this. And when you move, the hype cycle just comes along with it, and people are going to want to go get their card. So, very good point. Now, hobby tip of the day, Andy. I'm going to go ahead and give it right now, okay? Support your LCS. Local card shows, baby. I don't live in an area where there is a local card show or a local card show, a local card store near me. Okay, I went to a really good one. They do it right at the sports card shop I was at this past weekend, Chuck's in Albany, Louisiana, and you just learn so much from being around there. You can get great deals on cards. It's all mostly cash deals, so you don't have to worry about the shipping. You're able to actually look at the card and, determine what you want out of your experience at a local card store. Now, it's also fun just to go rip a box and just, I saw a lot of people just having fun ripping, and boxes can be expensive just depending on who you are. It's just the experience of it. I'm a true believer in local card stores and local card shows. We're starting to see more local card shows pop up and down throughout the entire country. And I know, Andy, you've been reading about this as well. Atlanta this past week was apparently a huge show. Dallas has a bunch of huge shows. Louisiana is starting to have a bunch of shows. So local card shows, local card stores, whenever you hear LCS, that's what it means. We talk about abbreviations all the time. But Andy, I just can't say it enough. It really is a game changer when you can actually go to the store and get some supplies and help out a hobby shop. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's fantastic because those guys are kind of the backbone. They're the brick and mortar backbone of the hobby. There's nothing like holding one of your Grail cards in your hand, one of your chase cards in your hand, and getting to actually purvey those cards in person in your hand. So that's an incredible experience, Carter. I think that's a fantastic hobby tip. Mine is going to be bringing it back to eBay. Is something that I've been doing lately, and that is I figured out if you have an iPhone, Windows PC, you can actually go to the settings of your camera, turn it off from most efficient, which is now a HEIC file, to most compatible. That's going to take those photos back to a JPEG. So then so you can then use your iPhone 11, 13, whatever it is, take great photos of your cards, and then upload them to your Google Drive or iCloud, your computer. Then you go onto eBay. And what I've been doing, Carter, is when you go to sell an item on your My eBay, there's a little button at the top right that says switch to business tool. This doesn't cost any money. It's just an advanced way of listing your cards. But what's nice about this, when you switch to business tool, there's a little drop down that says create templates. And so what I recommend you do is create templates for different sets, for different players, create templates for raw and graded cards. And this will go ahead and populate all those descriptors. So if you kind of already have an idea, like you're pretty experienced here on the Quest, you kind of already have an idea of what you want to list your cards at for future breakout potential and a buy it now, use these templates. You can buzz through listings in like a minute to 5 minutes. You could batch all your photos, upload them, and then you could mow through a ton of listings really quick with these templates. And that's what I've been implementing this week. I've actually got a video coming out on it later on YouTube. So it's going to save you a tremendous amount of time listing your cards.
That's a game changer. I can't wait to look for this video. It's something else I love about your channel, Andy. You do these videos that just really help people out. Like I can't wait to see it. And I know this isn't going to be popular, what I'm about to say, but I know I just said all that stuff about LCSs and whatnot. I give eBay a lot of credit, right? So I was listening to this sports card nonsense, and then we're at the show in Atlanta, and they talked about eBay was at, did you know this, Andy? They were actually at the show.
I heard about that. Yeah, I was watching Michael Ham's live content at the Culture Show in Atlanta.
Oh, did he go? Did Ham win?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ham was there. And yeah, man, he was going live from YouTube. He had a couple live streams that he did there, which was really cool. So I got to get tune in and get a look on Friday and Saturday at the show. And it was really cool looking, man. They had some really cool booths and setups. But I saw the big eBay section. That was awesome.
Oh, I got to check this out.
Yeah.
And this is why I got to give eBay a lot of credit. So they're not going anywhere. Okay. They're super huge. I mean, it's hard to beat them. They use as far as people going there and buying cards regardless, right? So a lot of these big conglomerates like eBay, they have tough customer service, right? There's a social media platform, which I will not name, and I keep trying to make LSU card accounts on it, and they always lock me out saying that I'm trying to sell my information or I'm trying to, build followers illegally or whatever. And it's clear that I don't. I just started the profile, but there's no one that I could go to. Well, this weekend at Atlanta, there were eBay reps that were unbanning accounts that were unfairly banned. They were right there in your face, taking criticism from people and doing their best to fix solutions. That's good customer service, right? They don't have to do that because people are still going to use the service, right? There's nothing for them to really gain from that. And I saw this past weekend with their new authenticity guarantee stuff. They took user criticism and they immediately changed how they ship their cards. Immediately. I got to give them a lot of credit. Once again, this is not a paid testimonial. I sell, a fair amount of cards on eBay. I don't have like this huge store. I don't have like $300,000 coming in my eBay store. A lot of people do. I'm just saying that really impresses me, knowing that if you are the big dog, you don't have to do those things. You don't. So I give eBay a lot of credit. And for all the stuff you just said, I didn't know any of that. I didn't. Yeah. I don't list as many cards as you do. That's really impressive. I give them a lot of credit, right? I much rather buy cards locally and actually see them and survey and find the deals, and I'll spend hours in a store. But yeah, Andy, I give them a lot of credit. I mean, that's really impressive.
Yeah, we talk about companies having to evolve with the hobby. As the hobby evolves, these marketplaces have to evolve as well. So they've done some tremendous things, Carter. That's really impressive what they did at the card show. But just the fact that they implemented the authenticity program on cards over $750 with CSG, I can't tell you the level of comfort it gives me looking at a raw card on eBay of Patrick Mahomes Prism that says authenticity guarantee. The peace of mind that gives me, if I were, I'm not in the market to buy one, but if I were, that gives me a tremendous peace of mind knowing that I've got assurance, and if not, I'm getting a full refund right then and there, And the other thing they've done is they implemented the plain white envelope, partnered up with USPS to offer a plain white envelope. And I actually broke out the food scale, Carter, and measured. You can actually send up to 5 to 7 raw cards in a penny sleeve, sandwiched with a couple semi-rigids, all sealed with painter's tape in a plain white envelope, and it still only weighed 1.5 ounces. And so you could just spend 73 cents on shipping, and you you could offer that for free on base cards of $4 or $5. All of a sudden, buying a base card for 50 cents now becomes a profitable venture if you want to do that at volume of a potential breakout player. Because I mean, I've talked about this before, Carter. I know tons and tons of people out there that would impulsively react on their emotions and go and buy a base rated rookie of their favorite running back or sleeper wide receiver for $4 or $5.
I love it. Now,
Just
I
saying.
will say this: there's a lot of fair criticisms about eBay, and I know, that they take a chunk out of your sale, right? And there are taxes and different things that are changing the hobby. So trust me, I'm not just saying all this nice stuff. I really do genuinely mean it. There's obviously a lot of stuff that they need to work on and fix, and there's obviously everyone has their own experiences, and you might have been wronged by it and absolutely hate us for shilling them right now. But and those criticisms are very much valid. Don't get it twisted. But at least they're listening. That's my major point. So trust me, I've been frustrated with eBay. There's been some stuff that that's happened to me on there. Not too serious per se, but I know there have been like some serious like fraud and all that stuff. But at least you can listen to it, and they're willing to help you out. Now, before we get out of here, I think my camera battery is going to die soon. Because I got this fancy, like schmancy camera now. I've had it. I was just too lazy to ever set it up. Do I look better in HD, Andy? Does it look better?
Man, I think you look like 10 years younger, man. I
Huh?
mean, you're
Huh?
so
Huh?
focused
Huh?
in, you're so
Huh?
dialed in today.
That's why you gotta come watch us on YouTube. But wherever you're subscribed, we always like to do the play of the week. And Andy, I am gonna let you go first. Go right on ahead.
Well, I'm going back to Allen Robinson here.
Oh,
I'm going back to Allen Robinson. I think you may have even mentioned him last week, but we talked about what Odell Beckham did. Allen Robinson being the same draft class. He's been shown to be quarterback proof throughout his career. He's played nothing but with just quarterbacks who have flamed out. And Allen Robinson, I think a lot of what he did last year was just total and utter despair, trying to get out, force their hand to let him go. And I think that's what they're going to finally do. They also have an incredible young talent in Darnell Mooney. Allen Robinson is going to be a true X receiver who can win in man-on-man coverage on the outside. There is a lot of teams that he could fit in on that could use a person of his skills. We talked about the age production curve. A wide receiver is a lot longer than a running back. Allen Robinson's only 28 years old. You could get his rookie ticket autos right now for like $15, Carter.
let's go.
It's just so incredibly cheap, and that kind of carries across the board for most of his stuff. So incredibly cheap, and I think he's one of the elite wide receivers that you can almost guarantee is going to be on a new team. Hopefully, the landing spot is good, and I think it's going to do a lot of good things for his rookie cards.
Yeah, I think the weird thing about Allen Robinson is how ineffective he was, right? Like, it was strange seeing him have the year that he had. Like, it was 10 fantasy points, I think was his top. It's crazy, but I still do believe in him. I'm going to share this theory really quickly, okay? The game-worn uniform theory. Okay, so this was by far my favorite card purchase I've ever made. So being a big Drew Brees guy, his stuff is always going to be very expensive, especially his autograph stuff. But his game-worn uniform stuff is something that you could get. And I passed on one in Vegas of him and Peyton Manning at an LCS, and I still think about it all the time. But I'm at the shop this weekend, and I get this Drew Brees card, game-worn uniform, 6-color patch. So it's a 3-color patch, both from the Chargers and the Saints, year 2008. So this is my game-worn uniform theory, Andy, and I'm going to say it really quickly. So their autographs matter way more on cards in general. Let me see. There you go. The camera. Now I got to go back to regular HD. I'm glad I got that in. Glad I got that in right before. I got the fancy schmancy camera.
Yeah, we got to get the good view of that card.
Yeah, the immaculate. But really quickly, game-worn uniform cards, right? There's only so many game-worn uniforms that are out there, right? You can always get Drew Brees to autograph a card. You know that, right? Like you can find him somewhere and get him an autograph card. There's only so many game worn uniforms that are out there. They're used for different things, right? There's only so many game worn uniforms out there. So when you want to talk about rarity and scarcity, these game worn uniform cards, no matter the sport, are normally numbered. So it's a pretty interesting thing because you can always find autographs. You can always find autographs of Drew Brees. There's only so many game worn uniforms out there, and I think about this a lot. Drew Brees wore these two uniforms. Two different game worn uniforms are in this card right here. That's crazy to me. I think that's as cool, if not cooler, than having his actual autograph, right? Especially if it's I would take a game worn uniform 12 times out of 10 over a non-on card auto. I just want to run that by you, Andy, especially when you look at the prices. You know, the fact that I got two game worn uniforms in this card for it was a $50 card. He got a deal with me. The fact that that's what I got that for is pretty remarkable.
That's really remarkable, Carter, because game worn jerseys in cards are very rare, man. I've looked for them for all my favorite players, and the thing is, they don't really exist in modern day cards. You really do have to go back, and like the earliest I can find them, or I should say, the most modern I've found them before is like 2013, 2014, and still at that, they're very rare. You know, a lot of them are player worn or event worn, which is a rookie signing event where they had him put on like 30 jerseys and they don't really, necessarily mean anything. And I've also been surprised at how many players, when presented with a card, remember the actual game that they had that photograph taken in and stuff, which is really cool in my opinion. And if you've got a game worn jerseys in that, I think it's just as good as an autograph. If it's from an actual game, that's really cool, man. It's good advice.
But this is always something that's very important, Andy. It always comes down in this hobby to what everyone wants, right? So once again, this is just me making a bold prediction here that I do think game worn uniform cards. Obviously, it's not a big thing now. It's always, is the card autographed or it's not, or is it this version or that version or whatever. I'm just saying, when it comes to scarcity, okay, it may never be a thing, right? Game worn might not ever be a must thing. But, Andy, especially when you really think about it, now that you have all these patches, it could just be some random patch. That's why it's important to read the back of the card, right? And there's different variations of this, right? On the back of the card, it could read, "This uniform is not from any certain player or event." Okay, so it could just be a uniform that's in there. It could also say on the back of the card, "Player worn uniform," which means they could have just put the shirt on for 2 seconds at like an Panini event, handed it back, and they sliced the jersey up. Game worn is a, pun intended, game changer, because the company, and once again, they could be lying to us. I doubt it. The company is saying, look, Drew Brees wore these two different jerseys in a game. It really is important to read the back of the card when it comes to that. So once again, this card might always just be worth $50. But to me, and this is always something very important as well, it's not just about the money. To me, it's cooler that my favorite quarterback from when he was with the Chargers, and this card was 2008 Donruss. He joined the Saints in 2007. So this could be a rookie uniform card as well. Not quite rookie uniform, but first-year Saints uniform card as well. I once again, I'm a nerd. I just find that really cool. So I just want to throw it out there for the people that want to. This could be a fad. It may not be anything. But when it comes to scarcity, there's only so many game worn uniform cards out there. Boom.
Boom.
What a fun episode. Well, obviously there was a lot in this one. I'm super fired up. There is a sports card tip that changed my life. That'll be in next week's episode. Plus all that running back data. So what Andy did to start today's episode, we're going to do it next week, but with the running backs. And then at some point we'll get to wide receivers down the road. Andy, is there anything else before we get out of chat?
No, man, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna add a few new sets, a couple new sets, couple new players for the running back. We'll break it all down, dissect it for you guys. It's gonna be fun.
Let's go. Let's go. It's the QuestCast, baby. Peace.